Welcome back. Today we're focusing in on a stack of really powerful reflections.
Hmm.
Reflections centered on what truly makes or breaks global leadership.
Right. And we're moving past the usual stuff here
Exactly. Past the glossy strategy documents, the standard intellectual checklists.
and diving straight into, well, the human operating system,
Hmm.
that place where intention meets interpretation.
That's a great way to put it.
Precisely. We're exploring what the authors of this material call the rhythm beneath the words.
I love that phrase.
It's a great phrase. And it suggests that the vast majority of international failures, broken partnerships, stalled projects, they're rarely strategic
Or intellectual.
or even financial at their root. They are profoundly communicative. It's a failure to truly, fundamentally hear the other person.
That's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
It implies that, while we might all be speaking English or sharing a Zoom call,
Yeah.
or even looking at the same spreadsheet, we're actually operating on completely different emotional grammars.
Different cultural clocks, different definitions of what efficiency even is.
Or honesty, for that matter.
Absolutely. The sources really argue that we have to recognize that a shared language doesn't guarantee a shared understanding. Not of context, not of intent.
So our mission today is really to unpack this idea, this listening to rhythm.
Mm-hmm. And to understand how deeply culture dictates the grammar of everything. Emotion, silence, speed in leadership.
And our goal for you, the listener, isn't just awareness. We want to provide a kind of a functional, actionable framework.
Yeah, for becoming a bridge builder between these
We
worlds.
want you to stop walking past people, past opportunities, without ever really knowing what caused that fracture in the relationship.
And the core thesis we've drawn from all this material is, well, it's both demanding and crystal clear.
Which is?
Leadership success hinges entirely on cultural attunement,
Okay.
which means you have to intentionally step out of your own rhythm, your ingrained default way of being long enough to genuinely enter theirs.
And that requires us to redefine listening itself.
Completely. It can't be passive politeness anymore. It's not just waiting for your turn to speak.
It has to be something more.
It has to be active presence. It has to be courageous perception.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's establish this core, quiet truth that that seems to shadow every cross-border conversation.
Right. Global leadership, as these reflections contend, it rarely fails because of poor technical skill.
Or bad market intelligence.
No, it fails because we miss the rhythm underneath the words. We hear the content, the words that are spoken.
But we miss everything else.
We entirely miss the emotional grammar, the how and the why the words were delivered in that specific way at that specific time.
That's a pretty powerful indictment, isn't it? It means we're constantly misdiagnosing failure.
Constantly.
We're blaming project breakdowns on, I don't know, execution issues or budget problems.
When your root cause was just a rhythmic collision, a deep failure in interpretation. You had two groups just walking right past each other, misreading everything.
And the source material is very clear about the consequence of that.
Oh, the consequence is lethal to collaboration. Slowly, almost. You can't even see it happening. Trust just leaks out of the room.
That's a great image.
Think of trust as the foundation, right? The
Yeah.
structural integrity of a partnership.
Mm.
If the rhythm is wrong, if your speed feels disrespectful to them or their silence feels hostile to you, that foundation starts to crack.
And then nothing else matters.
Nothing. No matter how smart the strategy is or how much money is behind it, the structure of the relationship just can't hold together.
So if we accept that premise, then we have to fundamentally shift how we even define listening.
We have to.
Because for many of us, and I'd say especially those of us trained in, really competitive Western environments,
Mm-hmm.
listening has been drilled into us as a tactic, a time-bound necessity. It means absorbing info just efficiently enough so you can make your next point,
Or win the argument.
or win the argument, or just drive the timeline forward. It's often just a pause before you act.
And the sources just completely shattered that definition, that tactical, surface-level idea of listening. Right.
They propose something much more profound, an active posture. And that requires an internal transformation, not just, changing a procedure.
And I think this is where the material really starts demanding more from us. Listening is redefined here. It's not passive.
Not at all.
It's not polite. It's not just the absence of talking. It's presented as an act of, high courage and high intention.
It is. First, it's presence.
Okay.
Just being fully available physically and mentally, to this moment, to the person speaking.
And second.
Second, it's perception, moving beyond the literal words to actively search for the cultural context, the emotional grammar.
The hidden meaning in the tone or the speed.
Exactly. And third, it requires the courage to hear a truth that might show up dressed in a rhythm that's totally unfamiliar to you.
Maybe even uncomfortable.
Deeply uncomfortable. It means recognizing that the words are only the top layer. The real truth is being conveyed in the speed, the silence, the deference, the laughter. But doesn't that make leadership entirely dependent on context? I mean, are you potentially sacrificing the clarity you need for global ops for just constant, exhausting adaptation?
That's a really important question.
Where do you draw the line?
Right, because nobody can adapt perfectly all the time. The source and clarify, it's not about sacrificing clarity, it's about expanding your perception before you act.
So it's not about matching the rhythm perfectly.
No, but it is about honoring its existence. If your default is fast and direct, the work is to pause and ask, is my speed right for this room right now? If you're constantly frustrated by someone else's pace, that frustration isn't drama, it's data.
That's a great reframe. Frustration is data.
It's just data. You don't have to adopt their speed forever, but you have to acknowledge and respect the cultural logic behind it.
And that moment of intentional attunement.
That's the foundation. That's where all enduring global collaboration has to start.
Okay, so to make this idea of rhythmic collision more concrete, the reflections give us 4 really vivid examples.
Yeah, these mini tragedies of good intentions gone wrong.
Right, where the clash of cultural clocks just resulted in a complete breakdown of trust.
These are those moments where, as the author put it, nothing dramatic happened on the surface, and yet everything shifted in the relationship.
I think these anecdotes are so essential because they move us past the abstract idea of culture.
And into the real operational costs of getting it wrong. Let's start with the foundational one. The respectful no you often encounter in Asian contexts.
This scenario is painfully relatable. You have a Western executive. They're pressing for a decision on a joint venture timeline. They ask their Asian colleague from, say, Japan or Korea or parts of China directly, can you commit to this launch date?
And the colleague pauses, maybe offers a faint smile and says, I will think about it and circle back next week.
And the Western partner, who operates in a culture where a lack of refusal means consent.
They hear a firm yes.
Exactly. They note it down, they celebrate, they immediately start building timelines and allocating millions in resources.
And the collision is just. It's guaranteed. It's already happened. Because they interpreted the words literally, but they missed the entire rhythmic cue.
So what was the cue? What was really being said?
The key insight from the material is that, I will think about it, was not an expression of contemplation. It wasn't deceit.
It was what then?
It was a respectful, relational no. It was crafted very carefully to protect the harmony, the wa in Japanese, or the broader concept of mionzi, or face, in Chinese. In these relational cultures, preserving dignity and social capital often outweighs immediate transactional clarity. A direct refusal would be an aggression.
It would disrupt the harmony.
And impose discomfort on the other person.
So the phrase itself is a mechanism to avoid a loss of face for both sides.
For both sides. The speaker avoids the shame of refusing, and the receiver avoids the shame of being rejected outright.
But the Western team, focused on their linear project timeline, just completely missed that signal. They missed that the decision was already a no.
They missed that the method of delivery was the entire point. And the long-term consequence is devastating. Resources were misallocated for months.
And the relationship.
The Western side felt misled, even lied to. The Asian side felt the Western partner was pushy and couldn't read a clear, polite refusal. Trust just dissolves.
Because both sides feel the other acted in bad faith.
When in reality, they were just operating on completely different ethical timetables.
Wow. Okay, that leads us right into the second case, which is about how content and community are intertwined, particularly in East Africa.
Right. This involved an American consultant on an infrastructure project in Kenya. During a meeting, a local leader was asked a direct question about, I think it was water supply logistics, and the leader began sharing this rich, layered story.
Oh, story.
Yeah, a narrative about the history of the river, the community's ancestral reliance on a specific, well, the impact of the last drought.
Okay, so provide a context.
Deep context.
Yeah.
But the consultant, pressed for time and operating on that North American rhythm of urgent efficiency,
Got impatient.
became very impatient and cut them off. Demanded, just tell me the point. We need the data, not the history lesson.
Which is heartbreaking because the consultant truly believed they were being effective. They thought they were saving everyone time.
Right. But the sources reveal the magnitude of what was lost in that moment.
What was lost?
The entirety of the meaning. The story was the answer.
It wasn't a preamble?
It wasn't a delay. In many African communicative patterns, knowledge, especially knowledge about resources and community, is validated by its connection to communal memory and ancestry.
I see.
The story provided the ethical framework, the precedent, everything required to contextualize the logistical answer. To cut the story was to show profound disrespect for how knowledge is even transmitted in that culture.
So the leader's authority was rooted in that narrative connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their ability to connect the present data point to the past story. So the consultant got a tactical answer. Yes, we need a new pipeline.
But missed all the communal conditions required for that pipeline to be accepted and used. They got the what, but failed the how and the why.
Precisely. Which sets up our third collision, moving to the emotional grammar of Latin America.
And here, the collision happens right at the door.
Right upon entry. Latin American colleagues often enter rooms with incredible warmth, with laughter, expressive gestures, a very present emotional energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the material recounts how some visiting European partners, trained in a Northern European rhythm of reserve and structure,
Found this overwhelming.
overwhelming, unstructured, alarmingly emotional. They even started to doubt the professional credibility of the speakers because of all the warmth.
Which is a complete inversion of what constitutes credibility.
Total inversion.
If you come in laughing, sharing a story, maybe using touch in conversation, some observers would see that as a lack of discipline.
Or seriousness. A critical rhythmic misunderstanding. The source emphasizes that in many relational cultures, particularly in South America, that warmth isn't optional. It's not a performance.
It's a prerequisite.
It is the necessary precondition for professional content. It's the building of relational capital. Trust, which is based on genuine human connection, has to enter the room first.
Often through laughter and shared vulnerability.
Before any analytical discussion can even begin, by dismissing the gestures as too much, the European partners were, without knowing it, signaling that they valued clinical distance.
Which, in that context, is the opposite of trust.
It's antithetical to partnership. They were asking for an analytical transaction before completing the human interaction.
Okay, and finally, the fourth case study. This one is about Oceania, and the lesson is called The Authority of Stillness.
Yes, this is the rhythmic clash of speed versus depth.
So what happened?
The author describes sitting in a listening circle in a Pacific Island context where really sensitive issues were being discussed. After an idea was shared, a long, profound silence settled over the group.
How long?
Many minutes. And the observer, the author, experienced what they called internal panic.
I can imagine. Assuming the silence means something is wrong.
Awkwardness, confusion, a failure of the process. That internal clock, that North American or European clock, starts screaming, "Fill the void, someone speak, we're wasting time."
Absolutely.
But what the source reveals is that the silence wasn't emptiness. It wasn't awkwardness or a problem to solve. It was arrival.
Arrival. What does that mean?
The participants were waiting until their spirit felt present, until their voice was aligned with their deepest intention, until they had processed the statement through the lens of their collective values.
They were letting the words mature before speaking them.
Exactly. And the critical lesson here is that decisions grounded in that kind of measured collective value decisions that emerge from stillness will outlast any decision made in haste.
Even if they take longer to arrive.
Fundamentally, the silence itself had a profound authority. The observer's unease was just their own faster transactional rhythm crashing against a deeper spiritual time.
So in all four cases, the failure wasn't malicious.
Not at all. It was purely rhythmic. It was judging an unfamiliar rhythm, be it silence, deference, story, or warmth, through the very rigid, very limited lens of one's own cultural expectation.
The intention and the outcome just diverged completely.
Because the clock was set wrong.
These anecdotes are so powerful.
Yeah.
And they move us toward this necessary insight that, well, the key to effective global leadership is becoming a student.
A genuine, lifelong student of these different continental rhythms. We have to stop seeing the world as just variations of our own operating system.
We have to start actually mapping the emotional climates, the communication dialects of the world.
In detail. Let's start our exploration with Africa, which taught the authors about the weight of speech and the necessity of sincerity.
And we need to go deeper here than just saying words are important.
Oh, much deeper. In many African contexts, communication isn't just about information exchange. It's relational, it's communal.
So words aren't casual.
Words are absolutely not casual. They carry memory, ancestry, communal obligation, history, all inside them. When a sentence is released, a leader understands that you release it into the collective space.
Like a stone into water.
Exactly, like a heavy stone. And the ripples, the consequence of that action, continue long after the sound is gone.
So how does that weight show up practically? In a meeting or a negotiation?
It shows up in the pacing, for one, and in the hierarchy of speaking. Because words carry so much weight, you don't use them frivolously. There's often a necessary period of communal deliberation, maybe consultation with elders, before an answer is given. The person who speaks first is often not the most senior, but the one setting the context.
And what about emotion?
Emotional expression is seen as sincerity, not instability. If a leader speaks with passion, it confirms their genuine commitment to the community.
So connection must come first.
It has to. You establish that sincere base before the content can follow. If you rush the connection, you invalidate the content's legitimacy.
Okay, now moving to Asia. The lesson here shifts profoundly to the vocabulary of silence and harmony.
And this requires a complete re-education for anyone who thinks silence is just a break in the conversation.
Which is many of us.
Many of us. Asia taught the authors that silence is a fundamental form of communication. It's a whole complex vocabulary.
For example,
Silence can express profound respect for seniority or the seriousness of a topic. It's used for reflection, signaling that what was just said requires real weight.
it can also create boundaries.
It can convey dignity and establish boundaries without any need for direct confrontation. And, as we saw in the case study, it provides that soft landing for critique or refusal.
The unspoken meaning is where the real power is.
Exactly.
And the concept of harmony.
Yeah.
We often mistake that for just being passive or avoiding conflict.
Which is a huge mistake. Harmony, in this context, is not weakness. It's a profound ethical intention. It's an active, strategic choice.
So it's a primary act of leadership.
Yes. The leader actively manages relationships to prevent disruption. If you, as an outsider, assume that only spoken words matter, you will miss everything. The slight change in posture, the extended tea ritual, the gentle silence.
All of which are communicating crucial information.
About the state of the relationship, yes.
Now let's pivot to Europe, which offered a different kind of insight. Structure as kindness and safety.
This is a fascinating reframing, especially for North Americans who often see structure as just bureaucracy.
Right.
In many European rhythms, structure is actually a mechanism of care, a stabilizing force. If people have very deep emotional commitments to an issue or the topic is sensitive,
The structure, the detailed agenda, the strict time limits, the defined process is what organizes the thought.
it creates a container. It ensures that discussion, especially passionate discussion, stays objective and professional. It prevents it from devolving into personal conflict.
So precision isn't coldness. It's a mechanism for psychological safety.
Precisely. It's a way of ensuring mutual safety so everyone feels intellectually secure enough to engage.
And argumentation.
Argumentation, which can feel like aggression in more harmonizing cultures, is instead an intellectual engagement tool. It means I respect you enough to challenge your idea rigorously, not you personally.
The structure and precision are signals.
There are signals that say, we can go deep on this topic because we have these shared rules that protect our relationship.
And contrast that sharply with the North American rhythm, which is defined by momentum and strategic optimism.
Yes, the spark of forward energy, urgency of action. Here, optimism is rarely naive, it's strategic.
It's a force.
It's a necessary force that lifts rooms, moves ideas quickly, and creates the momentum you need for participation and iteration.
And confidence.
Confidence is a vital tool, not arrogance. It's perceived as competence. And directness is highly valued as honesty, not disrespect. In this dialect, hope itself, the belief that the future can be built quickly and effectively, is a core leadership act.
It's the engine.
It is the engine driving the machine forward.
Okay, our deep dive takes us down to South America now, where emotion is the bridge.
Yes, the relational center of the world where transactions are always nested inside relationships.
We're back to that idea of relational capital.
We are. Emotion is not the opposite of professionalism here. It is the human meeting place. It's the prerequisite for professionalism to even function.
So conversations move differently.
Like a multi-layered dance. More physical proximity, more expressiveness. Trust is built through warmth and shared experience, not clinical distance.
The authors noted something about laughter.
That the ability to laugh together, to share a genuine human moment, can be far more effective at unifying a team than the most detailed spreadsheet or the tightest contract.
So it's a connection speed that matters, not just the analytical speed.
Exactly.
And if that connection comes first, how does a leader manage that expectation?
It demands that leaders slow down their arrival. You can't rush the warmth. You have to dedicate time, maybe 15 minutes at the start of any meeting, to genuinely connect.
Show your humanity first.
Yes. If you jump straight to the agenda, you're seen as cold, untrustworthy, not fully committed.
Finally, Oceani gives us this insight into the depth of stillness. We touched on it, but let's elaborate on its authority.
This is such a profound lesson in quiet strength. In many parts of Oceania, calm isn't seen as emptiness or a lack of engagement.
It's depth.
It's depth and grounded wisdom. Stillness has this inherent soft authority that demands respect.
And the emphasis is on the decision-making process.
Entirely. On decisions grounded in collective values and deep contemplation. The belief is that a decision reached through measured thought, one that involves the ancestors in the community, will naturally withstand far more pressure.
Then one made quickly to meet a deadline.
Absolutely. So leadership here can be soft, relational, humble, without ever being seen as weak. It requires a leader to trust the process of emergence, not just the speed of action.
So the central point here is that the deepest collisions, they don't happen within a culture.
Rarely, because everyone knows the rules of the road. They happen between cultures.
It's where the European demand for structure meets the South American need for warmth.
Or where the North American need for speed hits the Oceanian requirement for stillness. The critical turning point in global leadership is just stopping. Stopping the assumption that our internal rhythm is the universal default.
Because where one culture finds clarity,
Another finds confrontation.
so understanding these continental dialects is step one. But step two is learning from the people who already do this.
Yes, the people who already master this translation process, the sources call them the translators of worlds.
People who naturally navigate this because they've lived in the gaps between cultures.
They are the bridges in human form. And they really hold the key. The source material identifies specific groups that have this innate skill.
Like who?
Well, first, third culture kids. They grew up speaking multiple emotional languages because their environment was always shifting. Second, diaspora communities who carried two competing definitions of home inside their voices. Third, multilingual families.
Who literally feel the texture of words differently depending on the language.
Yes. Fourth, queer people who often learned early how to strategically shift codes for safety and belonging in different contexts.
And finally,
The nomads and continuous travelers whose survival depended on rapid, non-judgmental adaptation to new contexts.
and the core insight here isn't just that they speak multiple languages.
No, not at all. They don't just translate languages, they translate worlds. They understand that a word like commitment or efficiency carries a different weight, a different history in different places.
And crucially, they've moved past just using techniques.
Right, which are fleeting actions. And they've adopted permanent postures, which are transformational shifts in how you are, how you exist.
That distinction between techniques and postures feels vital for anyone listening who wants to implement this.
It's everything.
Techniques are transactional. I will use this handshake. Postures are transformational. I will become someone who allows silence to breathe.
Exactly. And the author talks about the specific postures they had to learn to adopt to become a better attuner.
What were they?
It was all about these intentional, minute adjustments to one's own default setting. Moving from focusing on the next thing to say to the present moment of the room.
Okay, so specifically.
Pausing after people speak. Deliberately letting the silence breathe for just a beat longer than is comfortable.
Which honors the silence as arrival, as we learned from Oceania.
Exactly. Also, inviting stories before demanding analyses, instead of leaping to the data asking, can you share the story of how this came to be?
Acknowledging the communal truth we saw in East Africa.
Right. And starting meetings with genuine warmth. An unscripted human sentence, a real check-in.
That's the South American and African rhythm of connection before content.
Yes. And finally, consciously respecting the emotional speed of the room. Noticing when energy needs to rise for action or rest for contemplation, instead of just imposing your own urgent timeline on everyone.
This really moves leadership out of the realm of managing processes,
and into the realm of managing human perception. It's less about controlling outcomes.
and more about controlling the quality of your own observation.
Precisely. The sources are so clear on this. Global leadership is not about controlling every outcome or enforcing a rigid structure everywhere. It's about expanding your perception, your capacity,
It's about searching for the meaning that's hiding inside the tone.
or the rhythm, or the silence, that expansion of perception, the ability to see two realities at once. That's the ultimate metric of a truly effective global leader.
So if expanded perception is the goal, how do we translate that into, practical success, into agreements that actually work globally? Because eventually the contract does need to be signed.
It does. And the sources offer a single saving question that the author said rescued countless relationships from that collision course.
Okay, what is it?
It's a moment of necessary self-suspension. The question is deceptively simple, but it's profoundly disruptive to the Western default.
Which is?
What else could this mean if it came from a different rhythm? That question forces you to pause your default cultural assumption that my interpretation is the only one or that this person is being difficult.
And it proactively invites other pattern-based meanings into the room.
It's the mechanism that opens the door. It lets you build agreements that function beyond just superficial semantics.
So instead of asking the standard transactional question, do you agree with the terms in Section 3?
You have to ask the deeper, culturally attuned question. What does this agreement and our obligation to one another, what does it mean to you?
And that inquiry moves the whole relationship past just semantic alignment.
And into meaning alignment. It reveals the different priorities. Maybe the Asian partner defines obligation based on the depth of the relationship, while the North American partner defines it based on the legal contract.
Transactional versus relational capital.
Yes. And this is the critical pivot for leaders. Stop demanding others match your rhythm. Instead, match theirs first.
Which requires profound humility. That can be difficult for high-achieving leaders.
Very difficult. It means being willing to enter the room the way the room needs you to be. Fast or slow, structured or warm, clinical or relational.
Attunement is the prerequisite for legitimacy.
It is, and crucially, the sources help us depersonalize the friction. They note that these misunderstandings are rarely personal.
Which is vital for reducing stress.
They're almost always pattern-based, and once you see the patterns, once you realize the confusion is just a collision of cultural clocks, the emotional drama just dissolves.
And you're left with usable data.
Just usable data about the other culture's operating system.
So the discomfort we feel when a meeting goes off track or when someone is too quiet or too emotional,
that should be seen as instructional data, not a judgment on their competence.
the source material frames this perfectly.
It gives us this powerful reframing tool. Discomfort becomes instruction.
Confusion becomes insight.
Friction becomes a teacher. Every difficult moment is just a chance to see a pattern you hadn't recognized before.
But this demands that we look inward first.
Always. Which brings us to the necessity of self-mapping. You can't navigate another person's rhythm if you don't know your own. A leader has to know their own deeply ingrained cultural defaults, especially under stress. What speed do you accelerate to when you're pressured? What are your cultural blind spots?
Which emotional dialects naturally frustrate you.
Exactly. When you hear others, you have to hear them not from a place of defensive judgment, but from a place of deep awareness of your own cultural lens and the biases it carries.
The ultimate truth here is so powerful, and it brings us right back to the core premise of trust. When humanity is truly centered, collaboration survives almost anything. People will forgive almost any tactical mistake.
Any financial variance, any failed strategy.
But what they absolutely will not forgive is feeling profoundly unseen.
And that brings us to it, the ultimate, most advanced skill. After all these years of cross-continental work, the authors arrive at the simplest conclusion.
The most advanced leadership skill is, and always will be, listening.
But not listening as waiting.
It's listening as witnessing.
Listening as presence.
Listening as cultural humility.
It is the transformative capacity to hold another person's rhythm entirely, without ever forcing your own tempo, your own expectation into its place. That is the definition of a global bridge builder.
What an essential journey. Through global heartbeats, emotional climates, we learned how Africa gave necessary weight and memory to speech.
How Asia gave quiet and intentionality through silence.
Europe gave structure as a mechanism for kindness.
North America gave strategic momentum through directness.
South America gave warmth as the primary bridge to trust.
And Oceania gave profound, enduring depth through measured stillness.
It really all circles back to the simplest truth we can offer you.
It does. Leadership does not begin when we stand up and speak to the world. It begins the very moment we allow the world to speak to us, and we commit to truly listening. Every continent, every culture is quietly asking the same simple question of anyone who seeks to lead them. Will you hear me as I am?
That's an essential challenge for all of us, professionally and personally.
It is. And here's a final provocative thought for you to carry into your week. Consider one person in your life, professional or personal, whose communication style initially confuses or frustrates you. Maybe they're too fast, too slow, too emotional, too quiet. Now, if their confusion is actually data about a pattern you haven't recognized yet, a cultural rhythm you're missing, what structure, what community history, or what story are you unknowingly cutting short? And how would that small expansion of your own perception fundamentally change that relationship today?